Look how soft and tender that is. You see that? That's how bread and butter pudding should look. Soft and tender. Melt in your mouth. Hello and welcome back. My name is Drew, and today we're going to do something quite special. It's something from my childhood. As you know, I was born and raised in London, England, and we had some really awesome desserts. Europe in general have some amazing pastries, some amazing desserts, and today we're going to make one of the very famous English desserts, bread and butter pudding. So today I'm taking you back to my childhood. So for ingredients today, we have 2 cups of organic whole milk, and in addition we have half a cup of whipping cream, 6 organic whole eggs, 12 slices of ordinary store-bought white bread, and this is probably about 4 days old or so, so it's getting a little dry, which is perfect because that way it sucks up the custard perfectly. And we have a stick of butter, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla, and then this is half a cup of raisins, and it is soaked in 2 tablespoons of water with 2 tablespoons of rum, and any of your preferred rum would do. And I do this beforehand because I find that it softens the raisins, makes them plump up, and then just gives them just that extra luxurious flavor. I really like it this way. Alright, so that's our ingredients. Pretty simple today. So let's get started. So this is a super simple recipe, very easy. The bread is something that you usually have around your house, and most likely you're going to have it sitting around for too many days, and they're starting to dry out, so you go ahead and use them for some bread pudding. Alright, so it's very simple. All we're going to do is take each slice and just remove the crust. Get as close to the edge as possible so we're not wasting too much of the bread. And there we go, crust is gone. We're going to do this to each and every single slice, and once we're finished, we're going to go ahead and butter each slice of bread and cut it, and then arrange it in a bowl or a cooking utensil of your preference, because this does get baked in the oven at 350 degrees. Now you might think, why remove the crust? A couple of reasons. One, the crust has a different texture than the bread, doesn't absorb the mixture like the bread will absorb the mixture, so once it's cooked the texture will be slightly different just on the crust area. 2, the color is slightly different as well. Obviously you can see it's brown, so having a consistency within the bread pudding, it's better to remove the crust for color and texture. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and finish these, and we're going to butter the bread. So you want to make sure your butter's at room temperature, and I just squish it a little bit like that, because that way less chance of you tearing up the bread. You want to put a liberal amount on the bread, you don't want it too thin. Alright. And we only do one side. If we did both sides, then the bread wouldn't absorb a lot of the custard mixture, because the fat and the butter would prevent it. So we only do one side, and that's it. So now your bread's buttered. Take each of our slices and we cut like so. Make ourselves little triangles, and we do it this way so it's a little easier to arrange in the bowl or whatever container that you wish to bake yours in. I miss a bit of crust. I'm a bad person. Alright. And having it in triangles just makes it a little easier to arrange. Okay. Let's slip these to one side. Like that. I'm going to go ahead and make my egg custard mixture. But we're going to first pour our sugar into our milk, and I do that so the sugar can start melting and dissipating before I mix it with everything else, and that way I'm not worrying about it not being melted while it's in the oven. So I'm using 6 eggs today because these are slightly smaller than what I would typically use, and we're using the whole egg. I have in the past tried using 5 eggs and with an additional yolk. Wasn't overly keen on the result. It gave a nice yellow rich color, but the consistency was more jelly-like than creamy, and I prefer creamy, and that's why I add the extra ½ a cup of whipping cream, because I find that it gives a really nice creamy texture to the custard without making it jelly-like. So you give this a good whipping. I like to get as much air into this as possible because it does make it slightly lighter. You could use a food processor to whip your eggs if you wanted to, but I don't really think it's necessary. A good whisk like this is just fine. Alright. That's good. So now we're going to go ahead and add our pure vanilla. And you can use vanilla bean if you have it available for the extra flavor. And this is a teaspoon of nutmeg. Oh, the vanilla smells just now hit me. And by doing this, you incorporate all of these seasonings properly throughout your custard. We're going to add our heavy whipping cream. And heavy whipping cream, or double cream in England or in other European countries, another good mix. Get everything bound nicely. And this is the milk, and it has the sugar already in here. Remember, I put it in here so it could start melting out. And there we go. There's some sugar still left in the bottom. Not bad, actually. Okay. So I've used, it was just a little over 3/4 of a cup actually. You could use ½ a cup. Some people like it a little sweeter. I prefer a little less sweet myself. Sometimes when it's too sweet, it kind of overshadows the other flavors, like the vanilla and the nutmeg and so forth. So I prefer it just a little less sweet. Alright, that's a good mix. We have a nice custard, good consistency. Should be fine. I'm going to sit this one side because the sugar is still melting. And now we're going to have our container, and we're going to start layering our bread pudding. But first, before we do the bread pudding layers, I'm going to put a small sprinkle of my soaked raisins, which smell amazing. The rum really does give it such a wonderful pop. And it's a mixture. It's 2 tablespoons of rum and 2 tablespoons of water for the mixture. because you don't want it overpowering. You don't want the rum to be overly strong. You just want the flavors strong enough that when you bite into it, you get that pop. So we're going to take our breads now and we're going to layer inside of our container with our bread like this. Go all the way around. One in the center. And then we're going to take a few more of our raisins and sprinkle on top of our bread. So we have a nice layer. And then we're going to go ahead and layer again. And we start layering in those areas that look kind of blank. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And it doesn't have to be packed tight. Like that. And then we're going to, a few more raisins on top of those. Starting to make sense, right? And keep on layering. And keep on layering. The last piece in the middle. And then we're going to put the rest of our raisins on top. Now we're going to go ahead and add our custard mix. And we're going to pour it all on top of our bread, all the way over, like so. And now we're going to gently push down on the bread in here. That way when it's, and just gently, not too much, you don't want to completely squash the bread. You just want to put enough force on it that you're going to submerge it in the custard mix. And as you press down on it, it pulls in the custard into the bread. Now we're going to let this sit. One of the special tricks to making bread pudding is to let it sit and give it time for the bread to soak up the egg custard. If you don't do that, then you put it in the oven, the egg starts congealing quickly, and the bread doesn't have the opportunity to actually pull the fluid into the bread. This way, if you let it sit 15-20 minutes before you put it in the oven, you'll guarantee that all the bread is soaked all the way through, and then you're not going to end up with a dry bread pudding. Now I need a magician to clear up this mess. Shazam! Don't look surprised. Do you doubt my powers? Our bread pudding's ready to go in the oven. Looks delicious. And we're going to put it on the top rack at 350 for about 25 to 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and check this in approximately 20 minutes or so. And we're going to add a little sugar to the top so it browns nicely. And then we'll put it back in for the next 10 minutes and check it again. And it should be done. We're at our 20-minute mark. And we're going to go ahead and pull this out, have a look. As you can see that. It is quite beautiful already. But we are going to add just a few sprinkles of sugar to the top. Like this, to help the rounding process, to give us a nice crust. There we go. And that little, if you wanted to use a half a cup of sugar instead of the 1/3 I used, that's the extra that makes it up to a half a cup just there. So we're going to put it back in now for approximately another 7 minutes or to 10 minutes, and depending on your oven and how hot it is at the 350 mark, you know, we're not all the same. And we'll go ahead and check it for doneness in about 7 or 8 minutes. Oh, we are now at a total of 38 minutes, a little over typical. Let's have a look. And I think that is as close to perfection as you could ask. What about that, folks? That is gorgeous. Alright, we're going to set it to one side so it can cool. Here we go with our finished bread and butter pudding. Doesn't that look absolutely amazing? It is gorgeous. So we're going to let it cool for about 10 minutes before we serve it, so everything can settle, because it is very hot right now. So here is our finished product today. This is beautiful bread and butter pudding, and I like it topped with a little cream. Oh, perfect. And then I can add some strawberries or blueberries or any other fresh fruit I might like, just to elevate it a bit. Here we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe as much as I do. I think it is awesome, and it is such a comforting food for me because it reminds me of my childhood. Well, here we go again. We have another beautiful finished meal, and this is authentic English bread and butter pudding. The little twist I put in there is I soak my raisins in a little bit of rum. It is absolutely delicious. Trust me and try it. It is a fantastic recipe and very, very different than most of the bread puddings that you'll find. Thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for all the thumbs up. Thank you again for subscribing. I really appreciate it. You guys have yourself a blessed evening. And if you don't think this is amazing, as I say it is, make it for yourself. I tell no lies. It is amazing. It's amazing. This a man for feed my belly. See, look. See how soft that is? Anybody give you this dry stuff until it's bread and butter pudding?